A decade ago, I looked like this, YouTube looked like this, and I played games like this. A decade is a long time to consider any type of medium, especially one as unique as video games. A decade ago, I was only 12 years old, so that might be enough to even discount this list entirely. But even when I was only 12 years old, I still had a lot of games I'd played. I remember playing Spyro and Crash on the original PlayStation. I've played World of Warcraft through Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King. I played Pokemon on my Game Boy Advance. I played a ton of GameCube games. I have a lot of nostalgia for GameCube games. And almost every single year for my birthday, for a while, I played Tony Hawk. I got Tony Hawk for my birthday, and I played the heck out of those games. I've had a lot of experience with video games in the short years I've had on this earth. It's something that I am very passionate about. It's a hobby that is so connected to me, I feel, as a person, that whenever I think of a year or age in my life, I immediately go back to the video game I was playing during that year. And that brings me back to my mindset and my emotions during that time period. And it's crazy that a video game, a movie, art, music can do that. Video games are definitely the most prominent thing in my life. Alright, so this is probably going to be a long video, but I don't want to waste any of your guys' time. In the description of this video, I'm going to have timestamps to everything I'm going to be talking about. So, you know, if I'm discussing a video game that you don't really care about or that you've played and you don't want to hear about, go into the description, click on to the next one. There's no spoilers in the description. I'm just going to have the numbers of the video games I'm going to be talking about. Before you do skip around to the video, though, I hope you'd stay around for a little bit longer as I discuss some of the things I'm basing for this video. So I think the most important 5 aspects of video games probably comes down to playtime, gameplay and mechanics, sound and music, story, and visuals. I think these 5 things you could say are like the core of video games. You need some kind of mixture of all of these. I think every video game has some vary amount of strengths and weaknesses on these 5. Now these 5 things I think all accumulate into one big thing that is going to be kind of the center for each video game I'm going to be talking about, and that's experience. I know saying experience being the main focus in rating video games is a bit on the nose and for this list, but let me explain. So in relation to this list, I define experience as some accumulation of these 5 things that give the player an unforgettable moment. Now, this doesn't mean that all 5 of these need to be at its best to provide an experience. As amazing that would be, I'm sure we've all had an unforgettable moments in games that don't have a strong story or gameplay or one or maybe some of these. But anyway, the way I'll be going through this list is by giving, you know, a few things maybe I like or dislike about the game and telling you guys the experience that made me put it on this list. Now, obviously, I'm not, you know, a perfectly objective person. I have my biases. I tried to break from that as much as I could. I feel like I play a decent variety of games. There might be some genres that are easy to see they're my favorite compared to others. There's probably some genres that aren't on here just because I don't play them. If you want to get my personal preferences on these 5 things I'm talking about, I mostly prefer gameplay over story. As much as I love a great story in a video game, if it's got weak gameplay, that matters a lot more to me than if a game has a weak story. That being said, though, I think all of the games on this list have at least a decent story. So last few things I want to talk about before diving fully into my list. There's some exclusions to this list. If I haven't played the game or I don't think I've put enough time into a video game, it's not on here. A good example of this is Skyrim. I've played a decent amount of Skyrim, not a lot. And I feel like I'm not justified to put it on this list because I just haven't played enough of it. I haven't gotten close to the ending. I've probably gotten to like the midpoint of Skyrim, if I'm being honest. I still think it's a great game, but it's a game that I don't feel appropriate putting on this list. So once you've seen my list of games, if there's a game that you think should be on this list, I'll hope you let me know in the comments below and tell me why this game was so memorable and special to you. I'd love to hear about amazing games I haven't played before and see why people care so much about them. Of course, I have not played every single game in the past decade. This list could never truly be definitive because I won't ever play all the games in the past decade. But I'm not doing this to have the best list of video game history, of course. That'd be ridiculous. I'm 23 years old. I don't need that. I don't need that stress in my life. Yeah, I think that's about it. Let's talk about some amazing video games.
Let's go. Get down there! Alright, everybody pays attention. No one gets hurt. Go! Open the door! They'll get worse than hurt! Hey! Come on!
Alright, Grand Theft Auto 5. There's a lot of things you can say about this game. One thing is that it's came out in 2013, but it's still so relevant. It's almost 7 years old, and yet the game still looks pretty great, and a lot of people still play it to this day. There's so much you can still do with this game that people are still playing it religiously today. So you have to commend that. There's definitely some things that I feel mixed about. For one, I think the story starts off really strong and then immediately like diffs after that. I don't think you can really question about in the beginning of the game how you are rushed into this, intense situation, and then you're like set to baby mode like immediately after that. So the Grand Theft Auto 5 story, I mean, in my opinion, is just kind of okay. In a lot of video games, there's going to be missions that vary in quality from, this is amazing to this is really boring. I think Grand Theft Auto has a decent amount of those boring missions. For example, where all you do is go tow one car. Like it's a useless thing to really know. There's a few things you could do in this game with towing cars. It's so slow. Like, what are you gonna do with towing a car? That's gonna be crazy, Now, I think I'm ragging on this game a little bit. Let's be honest, the best part of Grand Theft Auto is just the crazy situations you can get into in the world. There is so much you can do. This game is just a wild playground for you to do things in. It's kind of up to you what kind of fun you want to have in this game, because it can really vary. So yeah, the world just gives you so many tools to create fun situations, especially when you like hop online with people. You can see all the crazy things people are doing, from flying around helicopters and airplanes and tanks and getting these crazy cars and, maxing them out and having like races and stuff. There's so much fun things you can do in this game that it's undeniable to see, even if I, feel like there's quite a lot of flaws in the story of this game. I think some of my favorite moments in this game is definitely, when you're going in somewhere, you rob something, or you're killing, a cop or something, and then you immediately, hop into like a fast car and you're driving through and you got cops chasing you and you're having, gunfights between the cops, and all of these crazy, just high-speed, chaotic situations is definitely where the game shines the most. And then also times when you're just doing fun stuff with people. It can be amazing. I think there's a lot of moments that have incredible highs in this game, and then there's definitely some parts where it gets kind of low. A bit boring, in my opinion.
Come on! Come on! I'm standing here! Finish me!
Prepare for battle. Select your hero.
Overwatch is a game that I remember so fondly when it first came out. I remember playing the beta, and then I just got totally hooked into this game and told everybody I knew about it. If you haven't played Overwatch, I think it's definitely worth giving a try, just because all of the unique characters in this game really is what makes it. It is so easy to look at a character and then start playing them, and then all of a sudden you're already getting attached and you just want to keep playing them over and over again and get better at it. And not only is it easy to get attached to like one character and have a favorite, as you're playing the game you get exposed to other players' abilities and other characters. All of a sudden when you see it, you're like, I want to try that next game. At this point, I think most people know what Overwatch is. There are some things that I still think are cons for Overwatch, especially when it first came out. There was pretty void of content. I think they've added a decent variety of stuff now. They have a lot of different game modes. I do kind of wish Overwatch didn't take such a focus on competitive play. To me, the best parts I've had when I've played Overwatch is just when I'm having fun messing around with characters. Obviously, in multiplayer games, you want to win, but I think the competitive aspect of Overwatch isn't what brought me to play this game. It was really just having fun with all the characters and seeing all the crazy stuff you can do when you're switching between people and having all kinds of fun. I know they have game modes for that now. It just kind of sucks that when I play that I have to decide if I want to be serious, and then if I don't, there's quick play, which just kind of feels like a testing ground for if you want to play competitive which leaves me to, you know, playing in the arcade. But anyway, yeah, it's a game that I just fell in love with when it first came out. And I still have that place in my heart for it, even if I don't play it as much as I used to. I remember when I first started playing it, I remember playing Tracer for the first time. I think she was the first character I played because she was the face of the game. And it was just so fun teleporting around, trying to get behind the enemy. I felt like I was doing such a cool job, and I also remember all the times going into online matches where everybody would just pick the same character, and it was just so fun and so funny. And yeah, I just have such fond memories of this game.
Apagando las luces.
Child. Child. Child.
What is this?
My love. My love.
Don't listen to them, 2B.
Together forever. Together forever. Carry me. Carry.
They don't have any feelings. They're just imitating human speech. Let's take them out.
Nier Automata. Wait. Nier Automata. Whatever. Nier Tomato has a lot of really great things going for it, but there's some things that are so major that really holds it back. Let's start with some of the things I really love about this game. This game is just beautiful. It has really just desolate scenes that make you feel a lot of interesting emotions, coupled with the fact that it has some of the best music I've heard in a video game. Its music is just simply beautiful. It's a really strong aspect of the game. As you play more of the game, the characters 2B, 9S, and other ones that I won't spoil, you get really invested in the characters. There's a lot of interesting things going on in this game. There's definitely like themes of, I guess, existentialism. The fact that these are like robots that like are very similar to humans, but they're not supposed to have emotions, and their main goal is to like save humanity. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but let's just say the beginning plot of this game is it's pretty obvious what ends up happening, and then after that point it becomes really crazy, I guess. So the story of this game is incredibly complex. There's a lot of things going on, and if you're willing to put into the time for this game, you can get really invested into the story. This game has made me question a lot of things in the world. It definitely makes you rethink some of the things that go on in our lives and what it means to be human. This is a game developed by Platinum Games. There is some pretty great combat that looks really great and is fun to play. The only problem is there's some mechanics in the game that basically make it to where you can break the combat. There's self-healing abilities that if you get enough of, honestly just make the game less challenging. The game's structure is really confusing, and I don't think it really adds to the game. I think it takes away more than it adds. I don't want to spoil the game too much, but I think it's important that I break this point down. The way it works out is you play through the first part of the game, then you play the first part of the game again, but slightly different, and then you get to play a whole new part of the game that is way more built from the previous first section. I don't like this structure. I understand why replaying the first part of the game with the side character does have some important pieces, but I don't think it's really enough to justify replaying the second part of the game mandatory in order to finish the rest of the game. The experience that stands out most for this game for me is I will never forget the first time walking into the carnival in this game. It has just beautiful music, and it's such a cool area to like go through, and I just love that area. It's such a fun part of the game, and even on the like next playthrough that you go through that section, I loved it even more. Yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of this game, even though I think there's a lot that holds this game back. If you seem at all interested, it's definitely fun if you're willing to, you know, put in the time.
Ribbit. Ribbit.
Super Mario Odyssey is one of those games that never fails to be fun. As you continue to learn all the mechanics Super Mario Odyssey has to offer in controlling Mario, you soon find out that there's a lot of really fun things you can do by just running and jumping around with Mario. It is a game that is a great example of player freedom. There is so many different ways that you can achieve the objective of getting moons and defeating enemies in this game. Most levels in this game just feel like a crazy jungle gym that is just a joy to jump around and play in. Mario has so many abilities at his disposal that it often feels like you can do almost anything given the challenge in front of you. The game on its surface seems so simple, with just, throwing your cap to capture enemies and having a few various jumps and, rolls and dives. But soon after, you start realizing once you combine all of these elements, you can make for some really interesting scenarios. As you get better at the game, you can find tons of ways to get a moon that may not be the intended way. This game is all about doing things in the way that you want, and it's something that I really cherish and love about this game. I just love how free you feel to do what you want. You can pick the moons you want to grab to finish a world, do side objectives if you want. You can try to get all of them. It really is just, here's the game, here's what it offers you, do whatever you want kind of feel. Super Mario Odyssey, just like every game on this list, does have its problems. As fun as it is to play, sometimes it doesn't feel challenging enough, especially when there are a lot of moons that are pretty easy and basic to get to. There's quite a few moons in the game where all you have to do is, just reach like a very easy platform or just ground pound in a certain area, talk to somebody and do something very basic. It's in these moments I feel the game is just kind of handing it to you. It's not trying to get you to think or play in a creative way. It's just saying, you pressed the button, here you go. And I think the worst thing about it is, as you keep going through the game, there's always some moons that seem easy to get. It's okay in the beginning areas if there are moons that are just sitting there or really easy to obtain. But as you keep going through the worlds, there's still those moons around, and it leads to an experience where you feel like you don't have to evolve as much as a player to get through the levels. I understand Mario isn't supposed to be some crazy difficult game, but it doesn't mean that the game should never challenge the player to do things in different ways. Either way, I beat this game really quickly when it came out. I just fell in love with it when I first started playing. I just felt like it was so refreshing. I never felt like the game was locking me down, and that is something, again, I love about it. I think my favorite experience from Super Mario Odyssey, toward the end, there's a lot of really cool things that happen with the ability that I didn't really think about. The best moments probably for me is when I didn't think I could get like a moon, or like I felt like I had to get a moon one way, and then I mastered the controls in a way that I could reach it in something I didn't think was possible. There's quite a few cases where you could like capture something and get a moon, but if you've mastered controlling Mario, you can get there just as easily. So yeah, really enjoy this game. Minecraft is obviously a big one considering how many Minecraft videos I've made on this channel, and also just the fact that it is one of the biggest and best selling games of all time. This game is amazing for so many different reasons. I think one of the things that I find amazing about Minecraft is how accessible it is to everyone. I think the reason why it's so accessible and that everybody can play it and have such a good time is just because in the beginning there's no hand-holding, and you see the game and you see the simplicity of how it looks, and you immediately think, oh, this isn't a game that's, this is a game meant for a younger audience. And then once you start playing it, you realize how difficult it can be. I remember starting out and just trying to survive and having difficulty with that. Of course, I started playing Minecraft when I was really young. I remember playing it in the like early beta days before there was even beds in the game. I remember when I first started playing how I was like hiding in like a dirt hole, you know, trying to just wait for the night to go through because I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to like build things and try to attack monsters. And just slowly over time you start learning all these things, and all of a sudden you build a house, you have a farm, you start having better weapons to defeat mobs. I think how people slowly start figuring out the game is what just hooks people in. And it's just that thing of having everybody being able to play it, and then as they get more comfortable with the game, they get hooked. Now obviously some of the first videos on this channel is of me playing Minecraft, and I mean, you can even tell looking through my world in those videos that I was just enamored with the game. It's a game that lays a foundation that is easy to build upon, and obviously that's something you can take in a very literal sense. But, I mean, just looking at the game, people have done so much with this game, more than just building. There's amazing mods that people have created in this game that I've used. People have entire mini games, entire adventure maps with stories in them. Of course, the huge creativity with all the amazing buildings that have been made, creating a server with all your friends, all the chaos and like the pranks you can do. Yeah, it just amazes me, just a game with such a simple base concept has so much to offer. It's a game that I feel like you can do a little bit of everything in it, and that's why so many people have bought and played this game for as long as they have. It's a game, of course, I played before 2011 when it officially released, but it's still a game that's relevant today. There's still people that are playing this game. They've updated it so much. I'll always have nostalgia for the old Minecraft and the betas and when it first got released, but it's still just amazing to come back and play it and see how much it's grown. Now, I think it's pretty clear I have a lot of passion for Minecraft, and it has a special place in my heart. There's still things that you can critique about it. For one, once you start getting used to the game, you can kind of see how simple and basic the survival and progression elements really are. I mean, now when I've played the game for the millionth time, all I know is that if I get some iron, I'll be good. I feel like once you have iron tools and a full set of iron armor, most of the worries about dying, as long as you're not playing on like hardcore or have like anything crazy going on in your game, most of the worries of surviving kind of go out the window. And normally that'd be okay, but getting iron is pretty easy. It's challenging at first when you don't know what you're doing, but once you play it more and more, it's pretty easy to start up a world and already start thriving. I'm also surprised that not a lot has changed in terms of the ores in this game. There's still the basic ores. Even despite a few of the cons I might have, it's hard to really hate on this game. It's Minecraft. Seriously, I mean, how much can you really hate on it? I have countless memories of this game, from when I first started playing it, to when I was messing around with mods, to when I was, you know, trying to create really cool buildings, when I try to collect a ton of things, like when dogs were introduced in the game, I got a ton of dogs, trying to make a castle or a fort, when I started playing together on servers with my friends, when I was making Minecraft series on this channel. I had so much fun doing all of those things and just pushing the boundaries over and over again. I think it's very easy to see why Minecraft continues to be such a great game even today. Alright, now that we've gotten through some of the games, I want to just break it up a little bit by giving some honorable mentions, because making a list of only 10 video games of this past decade is incredibly hard. We are fortunate enough to have a lot of great games that we can choose from. So here's a few that, you know, I wish I could put in here, but I decided for a reason or another to cut it out. Of course, Skyrim is one. I talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but it's such a great game, and if you haven't given it a try, you should. Borderlands 2 is a game that I got so much time and fun out of. I love the grind in that game of just going through bosses and enemies and finding cool loot. And Handsome Jack is such a great villain. There's definitely a lot you can fault with it. It came really close to being in this list. Some of the jokes don't land. There's a lot of quests that you can criticize. but I still feel like it's an amazing game. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, come on, it's one of the craziest crossovers of all kinds of games in history. It's such a joy to play. It's so fun to play with friends. It's somehow accessible to everybody at the same time. There's an incredibly high skill ceiling if you want to be really great at the game. Enter the Gungeon is a game I played a ton of this decade. It has such a fun theme and so many fun weapons to find, and it's surprisingly difficult, yet it still has a lot of replay value, and it's got a pretty decent skill level. That game was really fun. Celeste has a surprisingly good story that integrates well with the mechanics of the game. That's a game I love a lot, and it was so close to being on this list. A few more, Fallout New Vegas was a great game of this decade. Doom, I mean, come on, that game's amazing. The Red Dead Redemption series as a whole. There's some games I haven't even played that are still on my to-do list. One of the biggest ones is The Witcher 3. I think I'm just intimidated to play that game because I know it's a game that is going to suck up a lot of my time. So yeah, those are some honorable mentions of some great games, just real quick. There's a ton I know I'm missing. But anyway, let's just continue with the list.
Daddy? Hey. Hey!
Get back. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Come, give me your hand. What is it?
My leg hurts.
How bad?
Pretty bad.
We're gonna need to run. Keep us safe. Come on, baby. Now hold on tight.
The Last of Us starts out with one of the most gripping intros in any video game ever. It's a story that opens up and you immediately get connected to the characters and you feel for the situation and you immediately want to know where this is going to go. I remember one of my first experiences with The Last of Us is actually watching the intro to this game, and I loved it so much I said, wow, I have to get this game right now, and I did the next day. It's a game with a story that lives up to movie quality standards and is even better than a lot of movies. The bond that you see as the game progresses between Ellie and Joel makes this game. Now, this is a video game after all. It's not just a movie. There are a lot of gameplay aspects that are also really fun to play with. The infected and clicker enemies in this game feel pretty unique. They don't feel like your standard just zombies. You can get really immersed in this game, and what helps that fact is also that resources tend to dwindle pretty fast also in the game. I remember countless times where I was running low in ammo in some of my weapons and just having to search and scramble and try to find anything I can so I could actually, attack the infected and have an easier time. There are so many things that The Last of Us gets right. Maybe the only con I can really think of is there are some slower gameplay moments. The game in general I think is a bit slower, but it's not something that takes away the experience entirely. My favorite experiences from this game is definitely as you get farther into the story and the story ramps up and you and Ellie are put in these difficult situations. That's probably some of my favorite moments of this game. If I had to pick a specific moment, I think the Ellie part when it's winter is a scene that I really love.
Like a moth drawn to a flame. Your wings will burn in anguish. time after time. For that is your fate. The fate of the cursed.
Dark Souls is such an important game series. It literally created a genre of its own this decade in video games. Now, I have some experience with the Dark Souls series. There's a reason why only this game is on my list. Let me be clear, I haven't played the first Dark Souls yet. I haven't played enough of the third one, and I've only played a little bit of Bloodborne. So this is why Dark Souls 2 is on my list, because it's the game that I got sucked into for the actual Dark Souls series. I think I just love this game because it's so challenging, but it's still so fair at the same time. The game is beautiful. I remember all of the amazing scenery going through this game, especially in some of like the beginning areas, and the later areas too, of course. But gosh, the theme of this game is just amazing. It's so like dark. It's easy to just be consumed by this game. There's nothing like the sense of achievement you'll get from defeating bosses in this game. Since this was the first Dark Souls game I ever played, I put a lot of time into this game, especially in the beginning. I have a lot of memories of the beginning of this game because I just played it over and over again because I was just so bad in the beginning. But I just loved learning all of the little things you can do and just slowly getting better and better. Every single time I died, I came back with just a vengeance to get through it one more time and prove that the game will not beat me. I mean, if I could put any con for Dark Souls, which it's hard to do just because if you knock it for its difficulty, you might as well be knocking it for the entire game because that's its main focus. If I could put any con, I'd probably put that it's unintuitive in the beginning. It's just hard to get a grasp at first. I mean, there is some like introductory scene, but after that, they really just throw you into the world and you just find trouble until you feel like you're going the right way. But learning this game and the time I play with it, I will just never forget, and I love it for that. The experiences I'll never forget from this game are obvious. Just overcoming the challenges through, progressively improving your skills just gives you the overwhelming feeling of triumph. It really does. So yeah, give it a try. Even if you get wrecked in the beginning, I think you'll still have a decent time. Alright, Hollow Knight. There is so much to say about this game. For starters, this game is freaking gorgeous. The art is beautiful, the music is amazing, the theme is crazy as hell. You're literally a bug going down a well fighting other bugs. It's weird, it's dark, it's creepy, I love it. This game is so incredibly immersive. You really get sucked into this game, especially with just all of the elements that I just discussed just really get to you. Exploring through the world and learning about this weird place that is Hollow Nest is such an enjoyable experience. You often feel lost to be running around talking to NPCs, trying desperately to find that one map guy to find where the hell you're going. The story is surprisingly deep. The gameplay is always evolving as you continue to learn new moves that you can use to help traverse the world. You always feel like you're getting one step closer to finding the core of what Hollow Nest is. Yeah, this game is just so amazing. I love it so much. There is so many things that just perfectly line up with this game. It's really hard to find cons. I think one that you can say is it's definitely pretty slow in the beginning, especially because you start out with just so little for your abilities, but still, even that doesn't even bring a scratch to how amazing this game is. I haven't even talked about how fun the bosses are, how some of them are so challenging, how much insane content there is in this game. It is literally insane. And I haven't even said yet that this game is only $15. You get so much content out of this game for only $15. There is free DLCs they have added to this game on top of being only $15. Do you know how insane that is? Just talking about this game makes me want to go back and replay it. If you're not into Metroidvanias, I totally get it. It's not a genre that I'm super into, but for this game, I'm just still all about it. There's so many experiences that I still remember for this game. Some of the crazy bosses that you interact with, the NPCs and the characters that you meet that are so weird. The story that gets just crazier as you keep going along, as you figure out that there's multiple ways to do things in the story. I definitely got confused at a few points, especially toward the end. I think I kind of rushed it a little bit because I wanted to play some other games. But still, it is just so fun. If you have some free time, you can really just dive into this game completely. I love it. I can't recommend it enough.
Oh, there do I see my mother. Oh, there do I see my father. Oh, there do they call to me. 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 Oh, there do they call to me.
God of War. Ooh, this is a big one to talk about. So there's a lot of things I love about God of War. I think first off, the gameplay and combat of this game feels amazing. It feels so heavy. You feel like you can, with every single axe throw and hit, it just feels so satisfying. The fact that with the axe you can like throw it and then teleport it back to your hand is so cool. It makes you feel like you're some kind of superhero. Kratos is such an interesting character, especially just right from the beginning. You can tell there's so much that is said in the game without being said at all, and it's just beautiful, and I love that. The interactions between Kratos and his son, or the boy, they have such a lot of really great lines, and their dynamic really evolves throughout the game, and it's so great to see that. Now, there are a few cons about this game. I really do love this game a lot, but there's a few things that I think I can nitpick about it. There are some slow moments in the game, and there's some padding in some of the game. For example, the random dark mist on the mountain just seems like a reason to, you know, force you to go somewhere else for a bit rather than continue with the story. There's a few like mini bosses that are used a lot, but still, even with that, there's just so much things that this game gets right that I love. I mean, it's pretty rare to find a game that has, I feel like, such a great combat and still such a beautiful story. And I haven't even gotten to the fact that there is one part of this game that I'm pretty confident in saying is my favorite scene in a game of all time. I love this scene so much that I don't even want to spoil it for you, even though it's in the very beginning of the game. There is this conflict with another character. I'll probably like freeze it on the screen for you. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. But it is so exhilarating, and it is one of the best moments I have seen in any video game, like, period. Every single time I see this fight scene, I love it all. I love it. Now, since I'm saying it's the best scene in almost any game ever, that kind of tells you that I feel like this is the peak kind of for the game. And not to say the game falls down from here, but I don't think there's another scene in the game that tops it. I think there's maybe a couple that get pretty close to it, and you might even be able to say that are on par with it. But after I saw that scene, I was expecting even more crazy stuff to top that. And personally, I think it just kind of levels out with that beginning scene. But since I love it so much, you know, it's still such an incredible game. I love this game. If you do want to see the scene I'm talking about, I'll leave a link in the description. If you don't care if you get spoiled or if you just want to check it out again. I just didn't want to put in this video in case there's somebody watching that has not seen or played any of this game, which I think is pretty rare, but just in case.
Was he?
Alright, here we are. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I remember when I first got a Nintendo Switch and getting this game just like a week after it initially released, and how excited I was to finally play this game. This game is incredible. The game visually is so beautiful. Exploring through this vast, beautiful open world was such a joy, and just exploring this game I loved so much. I remember countless times using my Sheikah Slate, looking at somewhere in the distance being like, ooh, I want to go there. And as I'm going to that location, I'd be sidetracked by 20 other things because I just kept running into these cool things I wanted to check out. This world is just so beautifully crafted. I keep using that word, but honestly, the game's beautiful. It's gorgeous. And not only is the game beautiful and the environment amazing, the game gives you so much freedom to just do what you want. Even after the initial tutorial, which barely even feels like a tutorial because it's still pretty hands off, you are just left to explore this giant world. And if it's not clear already, the exploration of this game is my favorite. Of course, add in all the creative, fun combat elements that can be pretty difficult at times, especially in the beginning when you are low on items. Add in the fun shrine puzzles and the 4 beasts that you get to explore and go through, and you get a game that has a lot of diversity in content and still just feels whole and fun. This is the first Zelda game that I ever fully invested myself into and beat completely, and gosh, what an introduction to the series it has been. I've just sunk so many hours in this game that it's unbelievable. I think within the first few weeks I was already, starting to pass 100 hours, and I remember just going to school, going to work, and playing Breath of the Wild. As much as I'm gushing about this game, all games have some kind of flaws. The durability system is something you can definitely critique the game on. It sucks that you can't have favorite weapons that you continually repair. On the opposite side, this does promote that the player always has a variety of weapons they're going through in the game, but I still feel that the weapons aren't so diverse that this makes that big of a deal. After a while, you get pretty used to using all kinds of weapons, and maybe you'll have like some that are your favorites, but because the weapons break, you usually just will store those until bigger moments or tougher enemies. And you could also say that not all the shrines are the best. There's definitely some shrines that are more on the simple side. Not all the puzzles are as amazing, but these things still were nothing that destroyed my love for the game. Because at its core, you're never forced to really do anything. If you don't like doing the shrines, you can just do a few of them, or if you go into a shrine and you don't like it, you can move on to another one, because there's so many different shrines in the game. And then you have the Korok seeds that are these fun little challenges, and the game just, if I could say one word, it's just the discovery. I just love exploring through this game and discovering all of these little things that are there. The combat is complex enough that there is a lot of challenge to it, and it's fun to master it. Flying through Hyrule is literally just like, it's a breeze. It's fun. It's fun to fly around, and you know, as the game progresses, you do learn new abilities and you continue to improve. Another con you could say is that since you pause to heal up, it's pretty easy that if you're in a fight, you can just pause and then get full health. But even cooking in this game, I think, is pretty fun, you know? So it's hard to knock all these things. And I haven't even mentioned all of the wacky stuff you can do, from like shield surfing and, you know, throwing bombs at enemies and freezing them. It's definitely my favorite game of the decade, and deserved its spot at number 1. If I were to try to say one experience that is unforgettable for me from this game, it's so hard to tell because there's just so many. When I found a horse that ended up being with me throughout the entire game, the first time going into a divine beast, seeing a dragon just randomly flying around, just hanging out in the sky, finding the fairies, talking to some NPCs. One of the first times I finally defeated a guardian, because in the beginning of the game I was scared of those things. The first time going into Ganon's castle, the mini bosses and the divine beasts. Oh jeez, there's so much to love about this game. I can't think of a game that pulled me in as hard as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So yeah, that's, I think, it for my list, and that's why this game is number 1 for me. Jeez, I almost started getting choked up at that last game. These games are all incredible, and there's so many incredible games in the world. I'm sorry if your game wasn't on here. It's hard to only pick 10 games. But still, thank you for watching this video. Please let me know what you think of my list, and I would love to hear any game that you thought deserved to be on it. I hope you guys can recommend me some great games that I haven't gotten to play yet. I would really love that, because I love playing video games. This is probably a long video. I've spent so many times revising this list and revising the games on it. I remember going from 25 games to 20 games to 10, and yeah, here we are. I've moved around so many games so many times, and I went through these games into detail. I rewatched tons of videos on them and tried to boil them down to, you know, at least a few minutes, which isn't enough to honestly talk about all these games in depth, but I hope it gave you enough to understand the reason why I'm putting it on the list, and still some things that I can critique about it. So anyway, with all this being said, I already actually know the best game that's going to be for the next decade. I did a lot of research, and I already know what it's going to be. So without further ado, the best game of the next decade in the 2020s will be skateboards, baby. Skateboards, come on. There are literally birds skateboarding. How can this not be the best game of the next decade? I know we're all going to play it when it comes out. I know we're not going to stop talking about it for the entire decade, alright? So yeah, we have that to look forward to. Thanks guys. Hope you guys get to experience some of these games.